That I contacted him, he would have rather not talked, that wasn't correct, right? That wasn't accurate, that I think 2 evenings later, he said I connected with Chris. And he would have rather not talked, that wasn't accurate. Chris Rock's sibling Tony recently uncovered that Will Smith lied about saying sorry to Chris for slapping him at the Oscars. And keeping in mind that a few fans are commending Tony for defending his sibling, others are blaming him for being a clout chaser after the 2022 Oscars episode. Will Smith guaranteed that he had contacted Chris Rock right away and attempted to apologize anyway. Chris wasn't prepared to work. I've contacted Chris. And the latest, the message that returned is that he's not prepared to talk yet. Think about what is per Tony Rock. This was the finished falsehood. And Chris never by connected with Chris. So for what reason Will lie about calling Chris? And what else did Tony uncover about the Oscars occurrence I watched? That no one helped my sibling I watched that he said. When he won the honor, Satan's continuously working. So that way was Satan a joke? Was Satan Chris Rock's more youthful sibling Tony? As of late plumped down for a towel interview on enormous kid television. And he uncovered a few until recently never heard insights concerning the Oscars laugh. So in the far-fetched case, you passed up this present circumstance. This occurred during the Oscars function in Walk 2022. Chris Rock made a wisecrack about Jada Pinkett Smith's shaved head and contrasted her with Demi Moore's personality in the 1997 film G.I. Jane. Jada, I love you, G.I. Jane 2, can hardly hold on to see everything right. Will clearly didn't think the joke was hostile, since when the camera panned on him he was chuckling anyway. Jada wasn't entertained, and she feigned exacerbation before the camera sliced back to Chris. Now we actually don't know precisely exact thing occurred in those couple of moments when the camera wasn't on Will and Jada anyway. There's been a ton of hypothesis that Jada either told Will something, or we'll see that she was insulted by the joke one way or another. Will unexpectedly walked in front of an audience and smacked Chris across the face. I'm over here, goodness Richard gracious wow. Will Smith just smacked the out of me after he got back to his seat. Will shouted at Chris to keep Jada's name out of his mouth. And he truly looked enraged with outrage. It was a G.I. Jane joke's name I will approve yet. Get this, Will was subsequently spotted living it up at a get-together, as though nothing had occurred. And this isn't exactly shocking, given that everybody hailed when Will won the Oscar only minutes in the wake of slapping Chris. And all the celebs hurried to comfort him, so Will presumably felt like everybody was his ally. Any other way, he could never have been so open to grinning and moving at the get-together. Anyway, fans all around the world were stunned and nauseated. And the web was in a flash overwhelmed with requires the Oscars to boycott Will and Jada. So when Will acknowledged he didn't have public help, he put out a statement calling his conduct unsuitable and unforgivable. Will guaranteed that a kid about Jada's ailment was a lot for him to bear. And he responded genuinely, I might want to freely apologize to you, Chris. Will composed, I was off the mark, and I was off base. I am humiliated. And my activities were not characteristic of the man I need to be anyway. Chris family rushed to get down on Will for being phony, and Chris sibling Kenny told Lay Times that he doesn't acknowledge Will's expression of remorse since it wasn't veritable. I could have seen it contrastingly had he at first apologized when he got in front of an audience and cried and acknowledged the honor. Yet he didn't, so not too far off. That lets me know that this is something different. Kenny said over the course of the following couple of months, the reaction against Will and Jada escalated, so Will took a stab at a conciliatory sentiment. In July 2022, Will shared a video on his YouTube station with the title It's Been a Moment, and he tended to a few painstakingly chosen fan inquiries regarding the Oscar slap. Will previously responded to the subject of why he didn't apologize to Chris at his acknowledgement discourse, and he said he was missed it out anyway. He likewise guaranteed that he later contacted Chris and was informed that Chris wasn't prepared to talk. I was hazed out by that point. It's all fluffy. I've contacted Chris. And the latest, the message that returned is that he's not prepared to talk. And when he will connect Will, of course apologize to Chris through the screen, and let him know they can talk at whatever point he was prepared. I will tell you, Chris, I am sorry to you. My way of behaving was unsatisfactory. And I'm here at whatever point you're prepared to talk. However, think about what, and as per Chris' more youthful sibling Tony, what you've just watched. There was a line through his teeth since he never really contacted Chris. Tony, as of late, showed up on Terrible Kid television to discuss his forthcoming parody Extraordinary. And he uncovered a ton of new insights regarding the Oscar slap episode. Tony originally addressed the subject of palace culture, and he had an extremely fascinating interpretation of this, making sense of that drop culture is particular, since when certain individuals get dropped, it can truly help their vocation, since they're out of nowhere a moving subject, and they become considerably more noticeable than before. Drop culture is definitely not a genuine article, it's phony oaken. Made up so no one's been dropped. Everyone said they've been dropped, right? You've seen a greater amount of them after they said they've been dropped than you did before. How is that counteracting anyway? As Tony pointed, others can get dropped for way less, as we, as a whole, saw in Kanye West's model. Simply don't express something about specific individuals. Gracious, no doubt, better believe it. That is, Kanye found out definitely, and keeping in mind that Kanye got dropped for talking, Will actually went after somebody on live television. But no organization he's even pondered cutting binds with him. Nobody debanked him or attempted to freeze his cash. And he's presently got a lot of tasks arranged. And yes, the foundation prohibited Will from going to the Oscars function for quite some time. Yet you can't actually consider that a discipline Will standing might have endured, yet his vocation positively didn't, as per his IMDb page. He has 4 motion pictures as of now underway: Terrible Young Men, for a revamp of the 1987 parody Planes, Trains, and Vehicles, and 2 Netflix creations, a spine chiller Reckless, and a wrongdoing biopic. The board Will is additionally set to star in a Disney, in addition to venture out show called Pole to Pole, which will follow him and his film group as they go on a track from the South Pole toward the North Pole. As a matter of fact, as of late, numerous news sources detailed that Will's profession is statement in the groove again. So it seems to be Tony Rock knows what he's talking about. Drop culture is very specific. Tony then discussed the second he figured out his sibling got slapped and embarrassed before the world, and he shot back at pundits who blamed him for involving what is going on for clout. And I thought, what on earth, my expense message, my siblings fellow? And I'm similar to you, understand what's happening. He resembles definitely man. I don't have the foggiest idea about it's insane. I'll converse with you later. And you know, being the sibling that I am, it's strange to such an extent that individuals are consistently similar to Tony Rock. Continue to discuss that for cloud. I don't have to discuss it for cloud. It's my sibling, say it's my sibling. I've been to a stay standing for a very long time. How could I really want to discuss this for cloud? It's my sibling. You folks don't have kin that you care profoundly. I love my family more than anything on earth. Tony likewise uncovered that he used to work for Will, which made it significantly harder for him to handle what happened. I used to work for the person we was companions. So you had a relationship. When you say you used to work with the person Will recruited me, definitely he in a real sense employed. He in a real sense expressed out of each and every entertainer that is the person that will have this influence. And we hung out nearby, we chatted on set. We eaten together, we discussed loved ones, we all definitely, and afterward. He put me in the film Hitch. Many individuals don't realize that, right? You had a relationship with Will Smith. Yes, Tony made sense of that. Both he and Chris were in finished shock and mistrust, since they generally cherished Will and used to admire him. And to finish everything off, after Will slapped Chris, he won the Oscar for Best Entertainer, and the entire room gave him a thunderous applause, while they totally overlooked Chris and didn't actually mind him to check whether he was oak. No one helped my sibling. I watched that he said. When he won the honor, Satan's continuously working. So that way was Satan a joke? Was Satan a joke? Was Satan investing his effort? And I figure Satan does somewhat more vile work than that. You understand what I mean? Ah, I saw that, Samuel. And I think it was Denzel Console, will yet express nothing to my sibling. And afterward Tony dropped the greatest sensation and uncovered that will lied in his YouTube conciliatory sentiment video. When he said he contacted Chris, yet Chris would have rather not conversed with him. I've connected with him, he would have rather not talked. That wasn't correct, right? That wasn't correct. That I think 2 evenings later, he said I connected with Chris. And he didn't talk. That wasn't accurate concerning fans' responses to this. It seems to be most of them are agreeing with Tony's position.